Hello crafty friends, there is a new challenge over at the Cloud9 craft store and it's all about monochromatic this month, so it was definitely a challenge for me. First of all, let me show you the supplies I used. I used the Thanks a Latte stamp sets, the brick stencil and the Christmas Dreams stamp set, but just for the sentiment. There's a link in the video description below with a full list of supplies I used, so definitely check this one out. Now, over to the coloring. I have already colored a few images off camera, but no other Copic combinations were used, so you can see all the colors in the video, or I also put them in the description box below. I couldn't resist adding two red accents. Since I will be making a Christmas card, I thought these accents would look great for that. Since it's a monochromatic look, I just used different shades of warm grays, and for the little coffee cup I used 3 toner grays just to have a little variation in shades. As you can see in the video, I used my darker grays for the mugs and lighter grays for the coffee and milk. Since the marshmallows are supposed to be white, I used an N0 and a C00, which are very light. These variations of lighter and darker markers give this the monochromatic look, with still a lot of definition in color, highlighting and shadows. Normally I only use 3 markers for one combo, but for the larger images I actually used 4 this time. I find that my blending turns out better when I do it like this. I always start with my darkest marker and then go from the darkest to the lightest marker. I repeat this 2 times just to get a nice blend. For the largest cups, I think I did this 3 times because I still got some harsh lines. As always, I use Transotype paper when I'm coloring with Copic markers, just because I find that this paper just gives the best results when coloring with alcohol markers. You will see that I didn't actually end up using the 2 candy canes that I colored, just because I wanted to keep it simple and there was just too much red if I added these to my card. For the card itself, I started with a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, which I die cut with the outside-in stitched rectangles from Lawn Fawn. This would give my card a nice border around the panel, which gives it this really cool look. I adhered it with temporary glue to my stencil station so I could start my stenciling. I placed the brick stencil on top of my panel, and because of those 4 magnets, my stencil would not move while I ink blend over top. You really want to make sure that your stencil is placed straight on top of your card panel so you wouldn't end up with a crooked wall. Since it had to be a monochromatic card, I used 2 Distress Oxide colors in grey, and these were Pumice Stone and Hickory Smoke. I started off with the Pumice Stone, and on the edges I went back in with the Hickory Smoke, which is a slightly darker grey. This gives the background more interest and shadows. As I remove the stencil, you can see the effect it created. Now I did want to ground my cups a bit, so I trimmed down wood grain cardstock in white. I took a big border that I could trim off later after I decided how and where I wanted to place my 3 images. Now that's where it actually went wrong a bit, because I liked the placement of my images, but I eventually totally forgot to trim down the border. Now, since I already adhered my images with liquid glue and foam squares, I just couldn't move it anymore, so I couldn't trim off the border to be slightly smaller. So you will see me pull up the border a bit and try to put glue below so that it actually did adhere better onto the card panel. I was lucky that the border was somehow straight on top, or I would have a all crooked floor. So I adhered the left and right mug with glue, and the middle cup was put down with foam squares to create a bit of dimension on my card. For my sentiments, I prepped a piece of narwhal cardstock with my powder tool from Tailored Expressions. This prevents embossing powders to stick everywhere but the sentiment. I stamped down both sentiments with Versamark ink and then sprinkled on some white embossing powder. Off camera, I heat set it with my heat gun. Now you guys might know me by now. When I cut my sentiments with scissors, they always seem to be all crooked, so I use my trusted sentiment banners from Lawn Fawn to die cut them. On the left and right edge, I just use my paper trimmer to trim them down to the correct size. I use some foam squares to adhere them down onto my card panel. Now I just need to adhere my card panel to a white card base. First, I took a piece of gray flower market paper and I adhered this onto my card base. This is just 5.5 by 4.25 inches. Then I placed my panel on top of that patterned paper. And as you can see, it gives my card a nice border around the panel, and I just really like the way that looks. I put down some sparkles with my sparkle pen from Spectrum Noir to give it that subtle glittery shine. And I think this finishes off the card for today. I don't think I have ever made a monochromatic card before, and I actually do like how it turned out. I do like that there are 2 red accents to make it a little more festive for Christmas holidays. Now thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to this channel. Have a great day. Bye!